morning, family and friends. So you asked me to cook some more for you, so this is what I'm going to do for you this morning. I'm going to make me some scones. So here's the recipe for the scones. And we're going to start out, get a nice bowl. We're going to add our 2 cups of flour. And in the meantime, I'm also going to add some hot water to my currants, or my cranberries, because I like to soften them up a little bit. So I'll let those sit there while I'm doing the rest of the recipe. Then to that I'm going to add a tablespoon of baking powder. And that gives it some of its fluffiness. And then I'm next going to add a tablespoon of sugar. And to that I'm also going to add a half a teaspoon of salt. And I have a 1/4 cup of butter flavored Crisco. And it just gives it a nicer color. It gives it a little butter taste without the real butter being in it. There are some scone recipes that do have real butter as part of its recipe, but you just need some fat. Some of it has some butter fat, some of it has, and mine's going to have heavy cream. And what we're going to do with this Crisco is we're going to cut it in. This is much the same way as you would cut in for a pie crust. You know, you want to blend it into the flour a little bit. And because it's only a 1/4 cup, it's not going to get as blended, you know, as a little bit more. Because normally with a pie crust, you're going to add to 2 cups of flour, you're going to do about 2/3 cup of shortening. So I use 2 knives, 2 butter knives. You can use a pastry cutter if you happen to have one of those utensils. I do not, so I find that 2 butter knives do just the trick. And at the end, I kind of just take my hand to it and I just mix it up until, you know, the fat's kind of broken into the flour as much as possible. You want to make sure that it's not going to be clumped together. They always say to have like little pea-sized shapes, but again, there's not enough Crisco or shortening in this to really get it blended with all of the flour and the sugar and the baking powder. So we're just going to get that mixed up. And while that's happening, I have, like I said, we're going to be using heavy cream. So I have a 1/2 cup of heavy cream. And to that I'm going to add 1 egg and an extra egg yolk. And you're going to save the egg white because you're going to brush that on top of the scone once it's done and before you put it in the oven, so you to give it a little more shiny golden top. So I think we have our flour blended well enough, and I always try to make a little well in the center. Here's my egg and egg yolk, and I'm going to pour that into the buttermilk, and I'm going to blend that up a little bit so it mixes up. And I'm going to pour that into the middle of the flour mixture. And I want to make sure I get every last drop, because that's, you know, there's not much moisture in this. So you want to make sure you don't leave any behind. And I'm going to mix that up. Start blending that together. And I'm not going to put the cranberries, and you can put anything you want. Some people like to have cinnamon raisin, whatever it is that you want to have, you know, in your scones if you don't want plain ones. And so just before it starts to come together, I'm going to dump out my water and squeeze my cranberries as dry as I can, because I don't want too much extra moisture. And I'm going to sprinkle those into the, and I just put a 1/4 cup in. Some people, you know, might put a 1/2 cup, 3/4. I don't like mine with overkill, as they say. And this is starting to come together. And eventually, I'm going to have to take my hand to it, not a fork. Okay. So I'm going to kind of bring that together. It's going to make a nice little ball. You don't want to overwork it because you don't want to make it tough. So you just want to make sure all the flour and all of the moisture get blended together. And even if it's not come together completely, you can, now if you have a nice granite top like I do, you don't need as much flour on it. So if it doesn't come together, sometimes you might have to add just a little bit more buttermilk, you know, to give it a little extra moisture, because you do want it to kind of be on the wetter side. Because when you start to put it together, it should have a little stickiness to it. So you roll it out onto the counter. And you try not to overwork it too much. And you put it into that kind of classic, you're going to put it into a classic now you can make your shape anything you want. You can flatten it out, and you're going to just knead it like a few times just to kind of get it together. Like I said, it's not a bread that you want to overwork, but you do want to make sure it's brought together. And you're going to just put it into a little oval shape. And like I said, if you have a marble or a granite countertop, you can get away without having to flour it. If you don't have a nice cold stone that you're working on, you're going to have to do a little flour. So anyhow, we're going to put it into a little oval shape. And then we're going to cut it into the traditional scone wedges. If you want, and you want to get a cutter and you just want to, you know, cut it into round circles, or, you know, like a biscuit, you can do that. But we're going to cut it into wedges. And you're going to get about 8. You're going to cut it into 8 wedges. And I'm going to make sure that. And then you're going to get your baking sheet, and you're going to put a little parchment paper on it. And it's not wax paper, it is parchment paper. So make sure that you use parchment paper. It'll say parchment paper right on the label. And now you're going to take your little wedges, and you're going to place them on the cookie sheet, making sure you leave a little space around them. But you know, you could leave them in the same design that you cut them, or you can spread them out. Doesn't matter. And so here's your scones. Now you're going to take your egg white. And I'm going to put it into and I'm going to just stir it up just a little bit to make it a little easier to put the wash on. And I'm going to take a brush, and I'm going to brush the tops and the sides of the scones. And don't worry about being neat. You don't have to, you know, worry about dripping on. It'll just stick to the paper. It's just a little egg wash, and it just keeps it from burning. It gives it a nice golden brown when it comes out of the oven. And there you go. And here we have scones. We're going to put those in the oven, 400 degrees, for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to have time for breakfast. Okay. And after 9 to 11 minutes at a 400 degree oven, my scones are now ready. You can see them. And so I'm going to put them on this plate here. They cool rather quickly. So, and they make a nice presentation. I think with that extra little buttermilk I put in, it made them a little extra fluffy and light, just like you'd want them. So I'm going to have my breakfast, have a little scone, got some fruit, got my homemade strawberry jam. I'll be making some up again this year when the strawberries get into season. And so just to kind of show you my little scones, and I'm going to put this on a plate here. You just open it right up. It's so flaky and light. Put a little dollop of strawberry jam, and we're good to go. So, bon appetit, and have a good day.